I had moved to Augusta, Georgia in 2019. In 2020, I bought my home. What I'm about to say is a true story. Many people know about it. Many people know about it. But in 2020, as you know, we had the COVID 19 draconian lockdown mandates that put this country and supply chains and prices into a complete tornado wrecking ball shit circus, whatever you want to call it. And I moved to Georgia because houses were cheap. I moved to Georgia not knowing about the culture dynamic, the cultural rot, and the backwards, obtuse, and opposite way of thinking that I would encounter here. It's kind of like when you tell a toddler no, that toddler is going to say yes. What you don't want the toddler to do is exactly what the toddler's going to do. 2020 saw the politicized and blown out of proportion, grossly exaggerated, not factoring all of the truth regarding George Floyd. CNN and the liberal networks immediately showed Officer Chauvin in the Minneapolis Police Department with a knee in George Floyd's back. Nothing was said about George Floyd's criminal record. Nothing was said about George Floyd and him holding a gun to a pregnant black woman's belly while she was being robbed. And we've heard this before. When I lived in Denver, there were BLM signs in the neighborhoods that I drove my school bus through. When I drove school bus, BLM, BLM. And no offense, but the people who sported those signs were attitude, rude. Their kids would misbehave on the bus. You know, there's just an MO that goes with that. Black people living today as if though they're still on the plantation. And they are, in their mind. They are because of their allegiance to the Democrat left. When I moved to Augusta, I never thought I'd see in living color the detriment that the blacks are to their own selves. Voting in leaders based on the color of skin, not the content of their character. Neighborhood after neighborhood with a tarp on the roof, a porch falling down, broken windows. The city not doing much of anything to quell or cull that. Property taxes not paid. You can go down a tax list and you can pay the taxes. They have a year to pay it. If they don't, you get your money back plus 20%. Or if they do pay it, say I was to spend $1,500 on somebody's negligent tax bill on a property in Augusta. They have a year to pay it plus 20%. If they don't pay it, the city reassigns a title deed to me. Then you got to go through the process of getting the local authorities. You have to serve eviction. You have to go through court and then get a sheriff to kick them off the property. Kind of a risky situation. If you were to do that, you can bet that they're going to tear up things on the way out. Pacific learns by doing. We don't always learn. You know, I don't know everything. Life to me is a crapshoot. Yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I believe in the sovereignty of God. Oftentimes we make decisions as Christians and step out of the will of God. I've done it. I've done it a lot. But when I turned the key on this house, it needed a tremendous amount of work. A tremendous amount of work. The windows were bad. Walls were bad. Insulation was scant. I didn't realize that a couple of years later the plumbing would fail and I had to teach myself how to plumb. And when I had a plumber hook up to the new piping I laid in the home, he said, "I cannot believe that you did this for your first time. You did outstanding." Doing framing, sheetrock, paneling, shiplap, knotty pine, the old 50s knotty pine, installing doors, installing windows, taking outdoors, putting in window. I have taken a wreck of a home and transformed it. Now I have a roommate who's in a professional capacity. She's been the best roommate I've ever had. Not a girlfriend, not a friends with benefits, a friend. She's the first female I've met in Augusta, Georgia, where we are in line on our Christian faith and our political beliefs. Finding that here is extremely, extremely tough. Augusta is 53% black, 35% white, and whatever the other is. I have friends that are black. I have acquaintances at work that I get along with. But I'm going to say some pointed things. And the black community has a what they call, or what I would say is their MO, their default mode is that anybody outside of the black culture says anything truthful about black culture, they're racist. I've seen this all my life. Denver, Colorado, I'd be with a friend. They're picking up something at Burger King. You're standing in line. There's Mexican, white, Asian standing in line to get their order, and there's the big, overweight black woman with the lip stuck out yelling so that the entire restaurant can hear her menstruation throughout the whole place. Yelling and screaming, "You're racist!" Hispanic people working behind the counter because they got her order wrong. And I wasn't bold then like I am now, but everything in me wanted to say, "My gosh, lady, really? Fast food always fooks up an order. It's nothing to do with racism. They're mostly young people trying to get a job, trying to get it straight. Fast food goes so fast that the faster you go, guess what? Mistakes are made." I remember my dad when we used to go to Der Wiener Schnitzel in good old LA growing up. Remember those A-frame restaurants, and they sold kraut dogs, and my dad would get a kraut dog and stink up the whole car. My sister and I in the backseat going, "Oh gosh, another sauerkraut dog." And my dad would get mad every time we'd pull it apart to eat our food. "Dad, got it. That guy couldn't find his rear end with two ends and a flashlight. Dad, what's wrong?" "Oh, they got my order wrong again." We know the crime stats in the African American community. We know the fact that there's 13% of the US population is African American. We, those of us that think, know for a fact. I have friends in social media from Zambia, from Kenya. I hope to be able to go to one of those countries before it gets to the point I cannot. African women in Africa are not the same as African American culture. And African American culture has absolutely no link to Africa whatsoever, except through a DNA trail that most of them cannot trace. But as far as them adopting the culture of African nations, no. They might wear the clothes or have the little African outline keychain or the earrings. That's as far as it goes. It's kind of like a Caucasian woman going into an Asian restaurant and using chopsticks for the first time, and she comes out of there saying, "I'm an expert on Asia." I ran into this a lot after a year of living in Hong Kong, chasing a woman, and it was a fail. But living in Hong Kong taught me about the world. Going to the Philippines, Japan, Guam, Macau, very eye-opening experience. No regrets for that. Chasing the girl, waste of time. I do not consider myself an expert on Asian culture, but I know a lot more than most of the people I run into day to day. And when I listen to people in my own culture acting as if though there's some sort of an authority, I just shake my head and go, did you ever live in Hong Kong? No. Well, I did. And everything you're saying is false. No, it isn't. Everything you're saying is false. I live there. I call BS. When I came out to Augusta, I was very open. Tried to mind my own business. Started working on the house. Job shut down. COVID lockdown. Prices went up. Trying to buy home improvement stuff. And a 2x4 eventually made its way to $8. And I said, well, we're not going to buy those for a while. Plywood CDX went up to $70 a sheet. I always thought it was funny how a store said there's a shortage on something, so they run the prices up the flagpole. That's great. Home Depot and Lowe's celebrated that. And I find it ironic that our government and our city leaders and precincts across the U.S. allowed Home Depot and Lowe's to be open when the plan was to shut down for 2 weeks. Everybody stop and give this virus a chance to just dead end itself. Now, that lockdown went on for a long damn time. We all know Paul Fauci and his mask mandate. Thank God he's out of the whole business. The highest paid government official, Paul Fauci. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And you can learn about him. He is a racist. He conducted studies on Caribbean island nations that seriously affected and damaged children using, pharmaceuticals. That's something that was on there. And nobody talks about the racism of a Democrat leftist. Nobody. Nobody talks about the fact that Joe Biden said, I don't want my daughter to go to a public school. They're mostly black and it's a jungle in there. Blacks never said a thing about Biden's racist comment there. Not that Biden didn't speak truth. When I had moved to Augusta, I had driven a bus, and then I no longer do. I've changed what I do. And out of all the 25 years of bus driving in Washington State, Colorado, Minnesota, and Georgia, the African-American children out here are the worst that I've ever hauled. Not every single one of them, but a lot of them. No fear, no respect. The lack of hygiene with young ladies and young boys smelling like they haven't washed between their butt cheeks, the armpits, the armpit hair, the funky BO, all that. And what kills me as I came in here, nice, friendly, good driver, drive smooth. I don't run over curbs. I follow the traffic laws and I give the kids a smooth ride. And I found that there was more racism in the black community towards us than I've ever seen whites towards blacks. And people got to know, in my almost 60 years old, that the sad reality is I grew up in Los Angeles, and I remember well hearing about the Watts riots, Cal Berkeley, and all the different riots. And every time the blacks get upset, they rob and loot and run off with TVs and electronics. And we saw the riots generated by the media and the left over George Floyd, a man who deserved to die, a man that had, if Chauvin had not gotten involved at all, that man still would have died by day's end. The first coroner report said he died of his own asphyxiation, not a knee. The knee did not cut off the airway. He died of a drug overdose of fentanyl. He currently, at that point, had COVID-19. He had health issues. And what the media failed to apologize for was the video that came out after the shitstorm was started by the media circus. Remember, the Democrats told everybody social distance and mask up. When the riots broke out, that wasn't being followed. And the black leaders, the black who's who, Oprah Winfrey, Maxine Waters, Michelle Obama, who said the infamous statement that white people don't move into black neighborhoods. We'll talk about that. And you cannot educate African American people about how wrongheaded their Democrat belief system is. You cannot educate the fact that African Americans were kept in slaves and chains and on the plantations by the Democrat Party. That the Democrats used to be in control of the Deep South, not the other way around. And by the time red state or Republican got involved, the Democrats had decimated the South, decimated it. The Democrats created the Jim Crow laws. They created the KKK. The ignorance about that is astounding. I have a Mexican friend at Denver schools that I respect and I like, but he said the KKK was started by the Republicans. I said, dude, get on the internet and look that up. No, it wasn't. Black people went to the Republican Party because it was safer for them. But the Democrats saw that they were losing a big powerhouse. So they created welfare housing, Section 8, EBT cards, and handouts. The blacks fell in love with them. And you have a lot of blacks out there that think that they're entitled and that everybody owes them a living. And you hear over and over about reparations. I know for a fact that if you go back to the slave days of blacks being on the plantation and stuff, and something that is not discussed is there were black slaves that were treated well. They learned English, they got an education. And when they were set free, they didn't want to go. They liked their owners that feared God. They wanted the perks that, and that is something that's not discussed in the United States. There were slave owners that treated black people with dignity, allowed them to have a home on the property, not own it, but live in it with a wife, with children, and they were treated with respect. Now we have a drama-based media that creates the news by stirring the pot. And the video didn't come out until months later that showed the other part of the video. The part before Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd. The video that showed them trying to get this big dude into the car. All you had to do was sit up. They could shut the door and go to the station and book them and do what they got to do. But no, just like a toddler, you go to take your toddler who's acting up, pick him up, go through a doorway, and the arms and legs go out in all directions, and now you can't get him, and you turn sideways, and the kid is being obtuse and difficult. And we see this with the black community over and over again. We don't see them being compliant. Cops tell them put their hands up. They reach down like they're grabbing something in the middle of the car. The cop doesn't have the time to take the chance to see that, oh, he's not grabbing a gun, and police are going to shoot. We got a case right now in Chicago with another guy. Mother saying he was into basketball. He graduated. He was a great, sweet angel. All of a sudden, the police shot 92 bullets in the car. I saw that video too. Police told him to open the door, roll down the window. He didn't comply, and out comes he shot at a cop. That's all it takes. And the black community is saying 92 bullets, 92 bullets. I wish it was 1 million. I don't care if it's white or black, Asian or Hispanic. I don't like criminals. And if you notice in the USA, bad drivers are caught as road rage. People who break the law, people who don't respect, they get away with murder. We're taught not to react. You react, the police will show up. They do the crime, you call the police. Well, it's a funny system. If two cars get in an accident in a Walmart parking lot, police will say, I can't write a ticket. This is private property. Okay, then why are you going to Walmart responding and arresting somebody who got caught shoplifting on private property? The dichotomy, the hypocrisy, and the double standard of law in this country is disgusting. We've talked about how the laws in this country favor women in child custody, divorce, alimony, all of that. An independent observer from the UK came over here and noted that our courts are favorable to women. America is not just, and it's definitely not just when it comes to blacks today. They're looking the other way. They're going soft on them if they even respond at all. because police departments, the yelling and screaming of 2020 of defunding the police was an effective cat o' nine tails. And the police departments, oh, we don't want to be accused of racism. And I see this in South Augusta. I see this where a lot of blacks drive poorly, no blinkers, do not go the speed limit. They don't go 5 over, they go 30, 40 over. They'll honk at anybody that pulls in front of them, even though they're going 40 over. They'll run red lights. They'll sit at a green. They all got their little SRP stickers on the back, which marks them out. SRP is a bank that if they claim they see somebody and call their license plate on the radio, they get $100. How many of actual payouts are? I don't know. But working with black people, working with black children, as I had done, living in a black community, we whites have been conditioned to shut up. About my home, there's a home in the neighborhood that this is what I was told by a neighbor who had a wife, 3 kids. They were African American. I did not have a problem with them. They smoked dope, but that's their business. They didn't bother me. They didn't disturb me. We had respect for each other. And he said, yeah, the daughter put something on the stove or cooked something and fell asleep. And the house got pretty crunchy inside with the fire. That was in 2019. The property sat empty, boarded up, broken windows, neglect. And then a pit bull run loose, jumping the fence, barking in the middle of the street, chasing pedestrians. Coming into my yard, I had to shoot out many times. I had to call animal control because this dog was dragging pants, garbage, defecating in the yard. I'd be mowing the lawn, I'd step in it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm getting tired of this. I didn't know who the owner was. I looked up the property and I saw that they were in arrears of property taxes. And I thought, you know what? I didn't know about the tax lien sale list. And I thought, isn't that interesting? The house is uninhabitable by city order. That house causes more problems than any other house on this short street that I live on. The son of the owner, don't know the age, big black guy, would show up Friday nights and Saturdays with an entourage of cars and pickup trucks. The noise that they would make, the revving the engines, the tearing up and down the street, the loud, offensive crap music with the N-word screaming in the neighborhood, the F word, the kind of music that when it rolls through the neighborhood, you feel this dark satanic cloud just roll in. Boom, 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 boom. I ignored all that. I thought, okay, they're not doing it. They're there an hour or two. They're not late. It's Friday and Saturday evening. Should let it go. 2021 came, 2020 fall came, and I'm working on doors. Thanksgiving Day in the kitchen, I hear all this racket. Look out the window, and there's a piece of crap car, blue with a red fender, 2-door type thing, where Augusta people that have nothing better to do pull the guts out of the muffler or pull the muffler off and do whatever they do, and it sounds like fart car or whatever. And this guy, 5, 10, 15 minutes, tear out of the driveway, rev going out of the driveway, make noise every time they came and went. And then his buddies would come over with Crown Vics, and it was like open house, hood open, trunk open, all 4 doors. This This was going on and on and on, all hours of the day, all hours of the night. I did what anybody would do. This is not somebody you're going to go up to and say, "Hey, my name is so and so. I'm your neighbor. Could you not do that?" And I've said this before. You can tell everything about a person by what they listen to. And people that take in a diet of that stuff have no respect for anybody. A lot of blacks have this mentality that they're not going to be told what to do by nobody. Many of them believe they can do what they want, that the rest of us are to stay in our lane, failing to realize that their bullshit is coming into mine, disturbing me in my home. Then 2 red dogs show up. So now we got 3 barking and yapping nonstop, hours for days on end, jumping the fence, running loose. I called animal control and called them and wrote notes, wrote 3 years of pages of notes with the son. Never met mom. I felt sorry when I had heard that the mother had a fire, but the neighbor said she didn't have insurance. And if you can't afford to insure your house, you probably ought to sell. To not have insurance in this city, in today's world, with riots, with weather getting worse, with criminal behavior, not having insurance on your home, not good. It is 2024 and the home is still not fixed. A couple years ago, about a 25-foot, 26-foot travel trailer showed up on the property. Mold all down the sides. And I thought, what is going on over here? Mom shows up, moves in. Daughter shows up, moves in. Apparently, the daughter owns the 2 red dogs. And the animal control would come over and serve them a complaint. Mom and daughter did nothing to quell the problem. Nothing. The son, before all this had happened, had gone to my neighbor and said, "Yeah, that white boy called on me. I was an anonymous caller." But the police are running scared. So they told him, "It's probably that guy across the street." Did not give my address. I have an out-of-state phone number. But apparently, dispatch at 911 can track your phone from where you're making the call. And there's been a few occasions where the police here did not follow protocol. And this stuff was really, really loud. I mean, I've got my window shut. It's raining. And he and the homeboys are over there making racket, working on engines. The priority of hooking up more wires to stereos and tearing in and out constantly. And it just, is this guy a drug dealer? So I called. I said, I don't know who owns this property. It's abandoned, burned out. Can you find out what's going on? Guy's living in his car. This is a residential neighborhood. The police would talk to him. The young man went over to my neighbor and said, "The white boy's calling on me." His wife came to me and said, "Do you hear all that noise?" I said, "Yeah, it's right across from my house." And at that time, I did not tell them that I had made calls. But when I first bought the house, and they would Friday and Saturday nights, what I did not know is that somebody had called all these cars in the street, outside the fence, 7 or 8 vehicles making noise. And what I did not see or know was that the police were contacted by somebody and they told them all to get out of there. And then we didn't hear nothing anymore and there was quiet. Didn't see any activity until the fall 2020. And the kid obviously didn't have a job, had a piece of crap car, making noise, knowing or believing that I'm the one calling and keeps doing it. Anybody knows that about blacks? If they know something bothers somebody, they'll keep it up. instead of going, maybe I should tone it down. I don't know that guy. He hasn't done anything to me. But the black mind does not work like that. You react to what they're doing, which is lawless, disrespectful, rude behavior. You're the bad guy. We see this with the law officers. We see this on the bus when I drove. You have to get up and tell the kid to sit down, and high school kid, and the kid's like, fuck you. You can move to the front of the bus. No, I don't need to. I said, yeah, you do. You're not going to talk to me like that. After being here 5 years in this area, it took me a lot of studying and research to realize, what does the African American community have to contribute to the good of all people in the United States? And after doing my research, zero. They bring blight, they bring high crime stats. Not all blacks. There are successful blacks. There are blacks that I like and respect. There's a black man I know who was a school teacher who served in the military, and he's retired, and he's still helping with handicapped high school children. He's running for one of the districts in Georgia as a conservative, and he told me, the blacks will hate me because I run conservative. They'll call me an Oreo, Uncle Tom, and a sellout. But he said, I'm sick of what the Democrats are doing to my people. And there are blacks I have a discussion with that don't go for the leftist crap. They don't support the riots. They don't support the behavior. In my workplace, I see favoritism with blacks to blacks. I see blacks acting bad, not doing what they're supposed to. They never get called in the office. They never get reprimanded. They never get written up. Everybody else will. When we talk about back in the day, the whites had a good old boys club. The blacks down here got it. You see it in Baltimore. You had a leader recently stand up. This bridge disaster really spotlighted Baltimore's incompetence. And one of the leaders stood up and said, there's only 20% white people in Baltimore. And he said, whites should be afraid. They should be nervous. We want them to feel that way. Let a white man stand up and say blacks should be nervous, and watch cities get torched. So when I called the police and I told them what was going on, one of the officers locally here said, do you know anything about that neighborhood? I said, I know a few things. He says, you should not have bought in that neighborhood. He said, there's a lot of, criminal behavior over there. And I said, yeah, I'm seeing that. And what bothered me about the officers is that this is the mentality in America. I don't care if it's a high crime neighborhood or low crime or mid crime. Do something and let's turn this around. Michelle Obama said white people don't move into the black neighborhoods. Michelle Obama also said whites are privileged. Oprah Winfrey said whites are privileged. Look up the addresses of where those two women live. They didn't move to Compton. They didn't move to South Augusta. They didn't move to Detroit. They didn't move to Harlem. They didn't move to Baltimore. They moved to lily white, privileged communities. Oprah Winfrey having a $90 million house in Montecito, California. I grew up in California. California's expensive real estate anyway. That's why I never went back. I can't afford it. And the politicians are wrecking that state. Pro-Democrat, allowing the illegals to come in, allowing homelessness to go out of control in the big cities. San Francisco, all of the big anchor and good stores are pulling out because of all the defund the police led by Nancy Pelosi, who stands up in African traditional wear saying BLM. What a clown. Then every time the Democrats get in control, crime goes up. Chicago, led by a black lesbian mayor who's screaming and yelling at Abbott down in Texas, is like, hey, lady, what are you worried about what Texas is doing? Look at your own color community. African-American violence soared to stratospherical heights under black leadership. Obama came out of Illinois. Obama did nothing for the country. He had charisma and he loved the camera. He ruined healthcare with Obamacare. 20 million Americans profited off of that, while the remaining 310 million Americans got kicked in the balls with high HMOs where you are paying into nothing. You got to pay a $3,500, $4,800 deductible before anything kicks in. Before that, Denver Public Schools had Kaiser. Places had health benefits that weren't for the working man. Now you got to be destitute and live on the system to get Medicaid or Medicare. Isn't that nice? But you can't tell a Democrat that. Cannot. A lot of blacks are what I call Afrocentric. They don't think about whites. They don't think about anybody else. It's only their music, their culture, and race go around. It's that endless victim mentality. Morgan Freeman stated it well. 75% of the problems in the African-American community are of their own making. And I don't respect Freeman in every way. He's another part of the problem because he favors his own people. But even he said this. And even some blacks I currently work with have told me, Pacific, sometimes my own people are a problem. Duh. So mom moves into the trailer. Mom is not in the greatest health, leans over, heavy, overweight, struggles. Now, I'm not putting that down. People look at me and think I'm 20 years old. This crap with the dog went on for 3 years. I never yelled at these people. I'd come home, that guy'd be out there making noise. Before she moved in, I'd get off, back my truck in the driveway, go to my mailbox, and the guy is sizing me up, and I just gave him a wave. I would be cleaning my windows outside the house with my back, and he would sit over there and I got video of him flying up and down the street. There were kids out. There were all his homeboys. And I met the police at an undisclosed location, and I said, I want to show you this. He said, well, we can't use the video to ticket, but I am going to go over there and have a talk with him. I know who you're talking about. And that's not okay, but we have to catch it. Isn't that funny about the police? They won't use my video, but if their video catches it, then it's different. The guy was a problem. Finally, in my job, I met a security lady who had worked as a police officer for the county. Black lady. I told her what was going on. She said, let me call the captains because I'm still good friends with them. And let me talk about somebody's in charge of your neighborhood and see if they can do something. I said, see if they can find out who the property owner is and call mom and talk to mom and say, do you know what your son's doing over here? Urban terrorism, playing that rap music, garbage anyway. And blacks go, oh, that's a racist statement. No, it isn't. It's not music. It's trash. And a lot of people, including older black people in the neighborhood I live in, one that is a good neighbor and I get along with well, he said, that don't make no sense. I don't like that stuff. He has bars over his windows. Are those bars for people like me? No. He told me, and I quote, I'm glad you moved in over there. I put up my privacy fence because that yard was 3 feet high and they had trash in the yard and I didn't want to look at it. I've had trees cut down. He asked if he could, he's got to replace some fence in the back. He said, can I cut those trees down on your side? I said, yeah, go ahead. I said, you can just throw them in my yard and haul them. He said, no, I'll haul them away. I said, well, you don't have to. I can put it all in my truck. That's a damn good neighbor. He's in his 70s. Blacks are not going to call on blacks. There's that fraternal order. But he doesn't like. And I spoke to him about the problem over here. He said, yeah, those dogs bark and get out all the time. I told him about what the kid was doing. So it finally got so bad that I finally said, I'm going to have to grow some balls and go to court. So animal control came out and said, if you want to go any further with it, I said, I'm doing it. Signed my name up. I got a subpoena. I had to take part of my morning off and I went to court. Dressed up a little bit, showed up. She walks in there with an older black man, her daughter. And I was sitting on the bench outside the courtroom and I thought, oh, this ought to be fun. What's he here for? He doesn't live over there. I hardly ever see him. Now, let me stop right there. The son is 3 times my size. I've always been a small Caucasian guy, and I don't get into fist fights. Wisdom tells me I'm probably not going to win most of them just on size alone. And I try to use my mind. And at one point, before the dog thing got totally worse, he and a buddy pulled up with the music just blasting, and I called. Said, I want to be anonymous. I do not want an officer. They did not have my address on file, or at least I never gave it to them. I'm working on building a frame out for a pantry, and I hear a knock at the door. White officer with a bandit, the bandito scarf over his face. I'm thinking, why is he at my door? I said, come on in. Oh, no. And he talks very loud. I'm good right here. I need to tell you, but you're calling on this, and they have the right to make as much noise until 11 p.m. I said, shaking my house? Yes, sir. I said, that can't even be a right. There's a decibel limit. He said, there is a decibel limit, but he said, we have to hear this blocks away. I said, well, I promise you, if you go 1 block over, you can hear all this. The guy was an ass. He was a woke cop. And I didn't think quick enough. And I should have said, with all due respect, I have always respected law enforcement, but I specifically told your dispatcher, anonymous, you don't have a right on my property. Get off my property, or I'm going to call your superior. Okay. Now that I know you guys won't do anything, I will have to go to another legal channel. And you can still do a lawsuit against a neighbor who's disturbing you. It doesn't matter what the law says. If you can prove that they're disturbing you and disrupting, it's about being neighborly. So the stuff went on and on until I got a black lady involved who used to work in the system. She now works for the district attorney's office. Very nice lady. Very nice black lady, very pretty. Her husband's a minister. She's a Christian. And she cared. Right after I dropped it on her, within a week of that shit with the son came to an end. I didn't see him show up anymore. I was like, wow, that's strange. The dogs got worse. 2 red dogs show up. Travel trailer shows up. Mom and daughter move in. Saturday goes by and they sleep half the day away. Daughter gets a new red car. And something hit me. You got this son acting bad. You got this daughter who, according to neighbors, was the one who accidentally started the kitchen fire. And she gets a car and is gone. She'd come by periodically, but they're not helping, as far as I know. I'm thinking, okay, mom claims to work for the same employer I do. Don't know what she does, don't have a clue. Thinking, okay, you don't have rent. You have hardly any utilities because you're living in a travel trailer. And I believe that house is paid off because if it wasn't, the bank would take it after the fire. And I don't see a lot of activity. Then one day I see a sewer pipe, PVC, hooked up to the trailer, running all the way the length of the backyard. I'm like, what in the world is going on with it? I mean, I'm thinking of Denver. I'm thinking of Duluth. I'm thinking of Spokane. And, hearing constantly people talk about code enforcement. And some places I live, code enforcement gets ridiculous. You can't even park an RV in front of your own house if it's a gated community or covenant community. But here it seems like Augusta doesn't do much. A city personnel showed up at a black man's property closer to downtown some years ago. They had been talked to about all these abandoned vehicles that didn't work. Says, you have to clean up this yard. They gave him chance. One day he came up there. The guy opened the door and shot and killed the city official. Pretty sad when a guy's just doing his job. He can't arrest him. He can have the cop arrest him. And the guy shoots him for simply doing his job. And we live in a world today where I, as a white guy, can't go and say, hey, mom, could you do something about those dogs? because I'm getting woke up. They're dragging shit in my yard. We all know what happens when you try to do what Caucasians we were raised to do is, you go and talk to your neighbor. No. And the cops told me when I called on the problem, they said, never, ever do not go over there and talk to people. They shoot around here. You call us. Anytime you have a problem, call us. Then you got a cop getting in my face, yelling loud enough for the clowns to be heard, even though now the cop was there and they turned the music off. And I wish I'd have stood my ground and said, get off my property. And you yelling at me, making me out to be the bad guy. And that's when it clicked. 2020 has changed things. I said this years ago when I worked we had 2 terminals in Denver, Colorado. We had Northeast, and that was mostly black. And when I first reported for work, that was the first time I was a minority in the workplace. I got along with a lot of the people there, but I also saw something. The blacks, they've got their own rules, and they're not going to follow the rules that are for all of us. I kept looking at the fact that she owed in taxes, but it didn't make the tax sale list. And I got so annoyed at this stuff, I called up one of my friends who started looking at the properties to find out who owns which is a rental. He said, if that ever makes the tax sale list, you can go pay the taxes. And if she doesn't pay it in a year, you can own it. You can get them all out of there. I said, I'm about ready to do it. All of a sudden, the taxes got paid somehow. When I heard what had happened before all this crap started, I told my neighbor, I thought, that is too bad. Poor woman. I thought, shoot, if she was a nice neighbor and I'd met her, respectful, I would have said, I'll tell you what, I'll do the rip out. I'll tear out all the sheetrock. I'll buy you enough sheetrock, but you got to have somebody put it in. I'm not doing all that. I got my own house to deal with. I would have done it. I would have reached out as a man, as a neighbor, to make a difference. I support home ownership. And yes, as a white guy, I would have had no problem helping out a black woman. But when all this stuff went on, I thought, oh, hell no. No, this woman, this is the welcome I get. So it went to court. Go in the courtroom. Judge, when it gets to our turn, and I noticed the judge was dismissing things. He was a white older judge, and he just wanted to get votes. People had done wrongs, but what I've noticed is if somebody has a complaint and they don't show up, the judge just drops it. He says, well, you showed up, they didn't. I'm done with this. And that's only fair. But when it came my turn to speak, I said, I moved in 2020, bought my house. I said, there's been a variety of problems with this house. I said, one of the problems has been solved, but there's 3 dogs, 2 red ones, what looks like a pit bull. They're not kenneled up. Sometimes they are, most of the time they're not. They jump the fence. They run freely up and down the street, barking at everybody. I have 3 years of notes. I'm sure you don't want me to read off all the dates and times. And the guy says, no, we're going to pass on that. He didn't ask to see them, though, which I thought was odd. I also had some video of the dogs endlessly barking at absolutely nothing. This went on day after day. There are other dogs in the neighborhood, but I don't hear them. Remember, I'm right across the street from this crap. The lady comes her turn to speak. She goes, I owned my house 38 years and he's owned his for 3. This is a couple of years ago. And who does he think he is? And I raised my hand. I'm not going to play ghetto in a courtroom. You have to carry yourself. And I wanted the judge to call me. He did not. And say, whoa. It don't matter if you've owned it 38. This is America. This isn't about tenure in the neighborhood. If I could have been able to speak, I said, your house, your household, your family is affecting me and my neighbor that's no longer there, and the old man next to me, and people all around. The woman went on to say, there's barking dogs all around. There's barking dogs all around. Nobody has a problem with me. The animal control officer got up and said they had complaints about the dogs getting out, barking, chasing children. Even people I worked with when I was driving the bus said, "Oh, you live over there across that lady, them dogs jump out." And I've had to call dispatch and say, "This is an unsafe bus stop because those dogs are going to attack the children." I said, "Yep, that's my lovely neighbor." Black women have seen that, but get this, there's zoning ordinances. You cannot live in a travel trailer when a house is condemned, and you cannot run a sewer pipe. And I thought, okay, I'm not getting anywhere. So now we have to take this to the next level. So I called the city. I said, they got a damn PVC pipe from the trailer running across the grass in the backyard. Is that legal? Uh, Say that again? No, that's not legal. We will send somebody by. I said, thank you. Started going, we're going to have to fight this war on a different level because animal control will come out, talk to them. They don't change. Then the daughter moved out. And oh, let's finish up the court case. Then this man, I don't know who he was, found out by my neighbor, yeah, that's her boyfriend. I thought, okay, why would anybody date a woman who isn't very responsible? But that's one of the trademarks of the community out here. The guys don't have taste in their women out here. And then not only that, I haven't seen the son or the daughter or this man go in and do what I've done by myself on this property. They have not cleaned up the yard. Before all this crap happened, I went across the street and raked up all the pine needles outside their fence, pine cones, broken beer bottles, trash, filled the bed of my pickup truck, and made a dump run. They don't even know I did that. A kid in the neighborhood was acting up and threw rocks at the front of the house one evening when I was here, and I went out. He was hanging out with the neighbor's kids, and he immediately blamed their daughters. I said, these girls didn't do it. One of you boys did it. And to tell you the rapport I had with the black neighbor, they had hit a piece of lattice over a big window, broke the lattice and dropped in. I said, why are you throwing rocks at my house? I've never done anything to you. I've been nice to you guys. The gentleman who lived there said, what did you do, man? You go home. Both you guys go home. And he's right. He hasn't done nothing to you. Why are you doing this to this man? He's a good neighbor. I said, I'm sorry. He says, no, that's not okay. When we had the lockdown, we had food delivery on the buses. We were taking food to the children that went to the school that needed food during the COVID-lockdown, or -19, excuse me. And we were doing the school in this neighborhood, and we were told by the schools, if you have food left over, please do not bring it back because we'll get in trouble by our food service boss. And I said, okay, so we had to be creative. If you can't find children, and a lot of the families wouldn't take any. I was driving and I said, ladies, I had ladies on the bus, drivers, and we would distribute the food. And that day I was driving, I said, I know just the place. My neighbor's got 3 girls. Went, knocked at the door, and one of the boys of the brothers who live a couple doors down came. I said, hey, is the mother here? We got some food. He goes, hey, I want to apologize for what I did. And I thought his brother had done it. He says, I'm sorry for throwing a rock at your house. I said, you know what? Thank you for admitting that. I forgive you. I said, you see that bus right there? He goes, yes, sir. I said, I don't make a lot of money driving that. They don't pay well out here. When you damage my house, that comes out of my wallet. I don't know what your issues are, but could you please not take them out on my property? Yes, sir. I said, maybe we can talk about, I don't know what, but we'll figure out something where I can maybe hire you to help me with something outside and pay you a little. Really? I said, yes. I said, you and your brother. So I came home one summer day. He was out there and I said, where's your brother? He says, oh, he's grounded. I said, okay, then you get I said, I'm going to rake up that crap across the street. Oh, that's my auntie's property. I said, really? I said, I'm going to rake it. you're going to bag it up. You're going to throw it in the back of my truck. You're going to just bag it up. Okay. I'm going to do the raking. I want you to be careful. And I raked it up, legally split, quite a bit of frontage. He did good stuffing bags. And I gave him $20. Wow, really? I said, I would have given half to you and your brother, but since you did all the work. He goes, you know what? It feels good to do the right thing. I said, that, young man, is what I want to hear. I didn't call the police on the kid. I didn't file charges because he damaged something. I took the lattice in the back room. I fixed it and refastened it. All that's gone. I've taken all that off. I've totally transformed the house. All that is gone. And I made a difference. And every day I back my truck in. Hey, man. He told me he wanted to excel in basketball. The reason white people don't move into black neighborhoods is because of depreciating real estate values and the endless barrage of disrespect that comes from the younger generation playing it's not music, it's noise, offensive stuff, shaking the walls of your home. If there's a message I say to the black community, you talk about injustice. What the hell is that? You're punishing me. You're punishing a 77-year-old man. You're punishing all the older black people that don't want to hear that. And then when I react, and it's not like I can just go over and say, hey, man, my name's so-and-so. Can we talk about this? Can we reach some sort of a compromise? I know you love your tunes, but this is a residential neighborhood. No, you white guys, you know what we grew up with, the loud stereos. They were nothing like today. We didn't have pulsating bass shaking people's houses. Did not. I now have a roommate that I told her about everything. And the reason I talk about this, the other night we got home and the son's back, hanging around. Doors, trunk, hood open, and he's got a friend with a big old 4-door Navigator and priority, middle of the night, 11 o'clock at night, we're going to hook up the stereo. And I'm talking to my roommate. I'm like, really? We both look out the living room window. I said, there they are. At it again. I said, didn't they pick a great time to work on a car stereo? And why do they come from wherever they live and do this over here? I mean, he shits on the neighborhood. He didn't care. When he would take off at night, I could hear him go, not just up this street, but a good couple miles away. I was laying in my bed one night. I'm like, you know what? Where are the police and noises on these damn cars? That was just the exhaust system. So we get to the courtroom, and this black man stands up, going to puff out his chest and do the posturing. If this young man would have taken the time to have some understanding and some communication, he would understand that her son just got out of prison. Thanks for telling me that, Pops. Now it all makes sense. You got out of prison and he's still acting up. That's great to know. Thanks for letting me know that tidbit. Now you just educated me that, yeah, the family daughter can't pay attention to her cooking. Mom dropped or did not have insurance on a nice house. And son's acting like a butthead and disturbing not just me, but everybody. But the other people are not going to call. There is a fear in this country that white people do not want to call and other blacks don't want to call on the brothers and the sisters. Don't ever underestimate that. And when you do what you need to do, you're the bad guy. The thinking in these people's mind across the street is obtuse. It's not correct. It's not according to this at all. The Bible talks about obeying the laws of the land. It talks about love your neighbor as yourself. I don't see any evidence of that from them. That young man declared war on me, and then they did it with the dogs, and then the mother moves in the trailer. I'm thinking, all right, Is this person allowed to live in a trailer on a condemned property? And she lied in the courtroom. She said something about living in the trailer and trying to fix my house. Didn't say why she has to fix the house, how it burned, and didn't have insurance. I could have said a lot. And people told me, if you pay those taxes and they don't pay and they find out, they get revenge. I said, yep, we know that about the black community. But I'm going to take my chances and hide myself in God. They're the ones that started the problem, not me. White boy over here didn't do anything. I don't fly Confederate flags. I don't do or support racism in any way. I'm not against the Confederate flag, but I'm not a Southerner. I'm a Northerner. And I want to kindly remind the blacks down here, it was Northerners that liberated you from slavery. So when you say all whites are systemically racist, you talk out of your butt cheeks. There's a whole lot of whites that never, ever went for the plantations and the Democrat controlling of blacks. We didn't go for that. We believe that people need to be free because God made us equal in his eyes. We're all sinners. We all need Jesus. We all need the cross. The behavior of this family over here shows me, number one, they're not Christians because they have no conviction that what they're doing is just totally wrong. And it's funny to watch guests and people show up. And one day I had ripped open a section of the front porch, took out the sliding glass panels, not windows. They had done a lot of crazy stuff in this house. Vinyl siding over nothing but framing. They had the foam 4x8 board, the white foam that breaks, the same thing your ice chest is made out of. And they had the vinyl attached. I'm like, man, somebody could have kicked right through and been in the front of the house. Termite damage, blah, blah, blah. So I made an entryway and had the rest of the porch was still enclosed. I put in a door, put in a framed out wall, sided it, stained it, water sealed it. And then I decided, let's rip open the wall. Let's take those two sliding panels out of there. Let's frame it up and let's put a proper window with the crisscross and that slides up and down. And let's make this house look like it has curb appeal. I spent 8 hours out there, tore everything out, cleaned it all up, framed it, tar papered it, plywooded it, put in the window, painted the stuff, cleaned up all the shit in the yard, threw all the junk in my pickup, put all the wood to be burned by the burn barrel, raked up the yard, put all the tools away, ate dinner, went downtown to the club. A little too tired, and I didn't stay long. I thought, man, I don't think I was ready for this tonight. She and others sat in their yard all day watching me. My back was to them. Didn't bother me. I don't, we're all curious. There's nothing wrong with that. And I couldn't help but think, are they getting this at all? This woman implying that I don't have a right because I only own my house for 3 years. That was a couple of years ago. When the brother or the son and the daughter show up and they go to mow, I hear the mower run for 5 minutes. And one day my roommate heard somebody over there, slow down, don't go so fast. I'm like, fast? It takes me an hour to mow my property and I do it by myself. And I go like a typewriter, rake up the pine needles that blew over, trash, cigarette butts, sweep off the mats of the door entrances of the house, and done. And why do I take the time to do this? Because all the shit that's said about Caucasians. I'm one man alone, no family, no support out here. Not rich. I work hard. I've taken abuse and crazy shit at work. I've taken abuse and harassment because what that was over there was nothing but harassment. You imagine if I was to move to a black neighborhood and let my dogs run loose, run into somebody's yard, play my music loud and wake them, they would say I'm harassing them. They would say I was racist. But nobody's going to confront these folks across the street because of fear, because of whatever. I'm not going to confront them. Should they ever walk over here and say words to me, I'm going to stand my ground and say, you know what? I don't believe in your shit. I don't believe in you people. I have done nothing to you, and you are constantly being a bad neighbor. Now, I don't care if you lived there 500 years. This is America. I am improving this property. I am improving real estate values. I'm a man of peace. I'm a hard worker. And I've been harassed by you guys because you as a mother failed to teach your kids something. You really did. And I don't see the son slinging drywall. I don't see him framing. I don't see him doing a damn thing. But the priority late at night when people are ready to go to bed, let's play with somebody's stereo and turn it full tilt. This time I stood in the living room window and I thought, I don't care if he sees me. If they do it again, I'm going to go out in my yard with the phone and do a full video and post it on social media and say this is what black folks do. And then they wonder why whites don't want to live around them. My next move is to go meet somebody from the city and say, we need to talk because you're not doing something about this. And there are zoning violations here. That sun came out. The trailer apparently leaked and put black tarps over it. The wind, within a few days, ripped them back. Then they spent time out there. I don't know if they were nailing them or screwing them in, but went through the metal skin of the travel trailer, which right there, I'm like, really? Now you just made more holes. The tarps are bunched up, wadded up. There's growth and weeds around the house. The pine needles don't get raked up. And people in the neighborhood walk by and sling their trash that way. When I first moved in, black teens were walking down the street, throwing little rocks at the windows and onto the roof of this house. And I've noticed around here, if a place sits abandoned or neglected, the kids will get into it, they'll fuck it up, and they'll tear it up. And a woman said in the courtroom she had the dogs because she had break-ins. I'm like, okay, break-ins for why? In all the years I lived here, I never saw anybody going onto that property but her and her kin. And when I spent 8 hours improving my house, most people get a frame up and sheathe it and leave it. I'm like, no, it's going to rain. I got to get a coat of paint on this. It'll have a chance to dry before the rains hit. And my mind couldn't help but think, are they watching me? Are they learning? Her boyfriend that wanted to play alpha male and posture in there, I thought, if this young man would have some understanding and some communication, I'm laughing. I lived overseas. I've been in communications all my life. I have worked with the public all my life in many fronts. My job references are outstanding. Understanding more than you do. Y'all want to excuse bad behavior and you want to put it on me. I don't care how many years you live there. You finally met somebody that doesn't just say, okay, I'm going to roll over. They're black. Don't rock the boat. Let them do whatever they want. No. I pay my taxes over here and I pay more taxes than you do. I have rights, babe. But your son comes over there the other night and disturbed us. And I don't know if he saw us standing in the window, but the music stopped. I said, what time is it? My friend says 10:58. I said, boy, if I hear that one more time, 11 o'clock, I'm calling. And I'll sign a damn complaint. Then mom shows up in her car. They didn't turn it on again. What mom and the boyfriend don't realize is when the son, and she brought that up in the courtroom, this man called on my son, called the police on my son. I said, yes, Your Honor. He would tear up and down the street. He played music and bass was shaking my house. This went on and on and on until I met an officer that could take care of the problem. That has been resolved. And that man telling me I need to have understanding for an ex-prisoner. And I wanted to say, what are you doing over there? You're not rebuilding her home. You're not trying to get her in it. I don't know if he's using her as a fook buddy. There's so many black men I meet love to grandstand and posture, but when it comes to actually helping their woman out, no. When the pipe froze, they replaced something. He'll come out and do little things. He would bring dog food to the dog. And I thought to myself, this is the story of two people, two families, or two cultures, mine and theirs. That I didn't come in here acting up. None of the neighbors have any beef with me. None. My neighbor on one side of me says, man, I'm glad you're there. He had a pipe freeze under his back deck when we had 11 degrees, which is cold in Georgia. He said, I'll pay you. I was under there holding a PVC pipe while he glued it and stuff. And we talked, and he says, how much owe you? I said, nothing. You're a good neighbor. That's worth everything to me. I'm not going to charge you for this piddly stuff. I'm throwing out a sink and a vanity. Do you want it? I looked at it. I said, it's bigger than I need, but thank you. You ever need to borrow my tools or screws, you let me know. Very nice man. And I don't do that because I don't like to wear out my welcome. So Michael doesn't have a problem with blacks. I have a problem with the thinking that exists in many of them. I have a problem with a woman who ignores something very profound in here. The foolish woman plucketh down her own house with her own hands. You don't pay the insurance. Your daughter wasn't taught to be attentive when you put something on the stove you need to not go back to Betty by. You didn't teach your son to respect the rest of us. And I guarantee you she's a Democrat. And I guarantee you she's anti-white, anti-conservative. And I guarantee you that she's pro-BLM. And that is the stereotype that you see. One woman, her decisions affecting not just me. And the dog animal control, the lady said, we've had complaints all the way back to 2019. Did you hear that, ma'am? That was before I came into this neighborhood. So somebody else is griping. And the only reason there aren't more is because people are afraid of your race. I have reservation. I have to constantly think because I'm getting ready to throw that window open and say, hey, you guys need to turn that down, okay? It's been quiet over here and you're not going to come back and start this shit again. But what's wrong with Augusta when a cop says they can make all the noise they want? See, I don't believe in revenge. But then I started thinking, maybe I should buy a ship foghorn and mount it to the apex of my house. And every time they make a bunch of noise, that would drown out their shitty music. Or have a high decibel constant playback of hyenas howling, yipping, 20 minutes at a time. And if the cops come say, you said we can make as much noise till 11 o'clock. 3 months, the judge did not. You had animal control complaints up the butt. I had a legitimate complaint. He didn't do a damn thing to the woman. I thought, yep, he's afraid of the blacks. All he said is, you need to get control of the dogs. He didn't even address the barking. Didn't even address that. He said, there's a leash. I said, I can solve that problem today. Don't kid yourself in America. Whites, the justice system is afraid of the African American community. They don't want to be called racist. And this isn't racist, it's you broke the fucking law. And I'm being harassed and woke up and offended by a barrage of bad behavior from these folks. And this man going to tell me I didn't understand it. Dude, I've lived in more fucking places than you've lived. I've lived overseas and you don't know a damn fucking thing. I don't see you slinging shit over there and getting her house ready so she can move in it. But you see me over here doing it all by myself. I'm not rich. Just the appearance of my yard is 1,000% better than hers. I looked up some old photos. 2014, that yard was immaculate. The house looked nice. The sad thing is, if that woman dies and she doesn't look good for health, son's going to squat over there and be a terror to the neighborhood. Isn't that fun? So if you really want to do a study on whites and blacks, and you want to do a study on the woe is me mentality the black community carries, listen to the court, listen to what she said. That would have been an epic moment. She said, you know what, sir, I'm sorry. I apologize. If you're willing to drop this, I'll stop the problem. And I will have a talk with my son now that I know what he was doing, and this will not happen again. I would have shook hands with her, him and the daughter, and said, you know what? That's all I want. And when you fuck with me, and I don't have rights because we got a bunch of scared, shitless police department and a judge who should have fined you on the spot, said, I get any more complaints, the dogs are out of there. I don't know where the 2 red dogs went. I don't care. They're gone. But I just think it's funny that if that is the daughter who set the place on fire unintentionally, why is she not helping mom? She went and got a new car. And that is what I see over and over with the black community. If that was my mother, and I don't have a close relationship with my mother, I was adopted, as you know, and she was abusive and I moved my way. But if I had a relationship where I'm seeing my mother at my age and that happened, you bet I'm going to help her get her home back together. And blacks talk about Black Lives Matters, but I don't see the support. Except, and I see this all the time in the black community, they seem to be unified when they got an issue with my skin color, our people. But where's the support? Where's the black showing up? Like the Amish and mom, we got to get you back in your house. Where are they? They're not there. Son's too busy doing who knows what, staying up late at night, sleep all day. She didn't come out of the trailer until 1 or 2 o'clock on a day off. And I noticed that in the culture, they'll spend half the day sleeping and then they stay up all night, are a problem to everybody around them. Don't you love people like that? You got to work, you work your butt off, you pay your taxes, and there's always one asshole in the neighborhood that you can't do a damn thing about. And I told my roommate, I wish I had a remote control that you could point at this car, any of them. You know, y'all know I've driven commercially for years. And if I had that remote and these people drive dumb around me or they're playing that offensive music where you can send a signal and it fries their electronics, right here, I'd use it. Wouldn't even tell anybody. I'd just like, watch this. Car's going to stop running. That stereo is never going to work again. I wonder how many cars he'll go through before he realizes that every time he comes down here making noise, that the car goes. I wonder how many times he and his buddies would do that before they woke the fuck up. I don't have a lot of faith in their intellectual level. And it's nice that a mother can defend her family and defend her kids and all that and continue this enabling of shit behavior while I've done nothing but tried to revamp a property and be nice. I'm sick and tired of the politicians on the left and the media saying all the things they're saying about whites. It's baseless. She's not the only woman like this. There's a lot of that in the black community down here. Pull out in front of me, you'll honk at them and they'll slam on the brakes trying to get you to rear end a big, fat, not so beautiful black woman with lips sticking out. Let me do that to them and they'll get pissed. But if they do it to me, I'm not supposed to honk. The double standard of African Americans in this country is self-evident to anybody who pays attention. I'm not a threat to her. I'm not a threat to her people. They are. They're a threat to real estate values. Anybody, if I ever sold this house, come by and look and they're making all that noise and they look at that house. You know what, realtor, let's move on. If she'd have been nice to me, I would have done something to help her as a neighborly gift. No strings attached. Really offended me when the boyfriend wants to play puff out the chest in a courtroom. I wanted to say, Judge, he doesn't live there. When the son was doing this, mother's not there. She wasn't on the premises. This guy isn't here. They have no idea what's going on. Because when mother is there, the son doesn't play that stuff and doesn't do that. I didn't get a chance to say that. The judge did say, well, we need to try to learn to be neighborly. Which one of us he was directing that at, I don't know. But she said the house has been robbed. And he said, well, I would think that, him being across from you, that if he saw something, he'd probably call the authorities. And I thought, well, yeah, if I saw somebody breaking in there and fucking around, I'm going to call. If I saw somebody trying to break into her trailer when she's asleep, I'm going to call because she's in danger. Would she do that for me? Hell no. We live in a society where that is an example. And there's a lot of that in this country. A lot. Women divorced, husband died, whatever. This guy ain't going to marry her. This guy ain't even helping her fix her place. And I can't tell you how many times I've been out on my front porch cutting wood and I hear an argument break out over there and she's letting it all hang out. I mean, I can hear it. I'm just like laughing inside going, oh boy, menstruating, put your business in the street, like good old dirty low down Boz Skaggs says. And I never said a word to them. Never told the guy to turn down the music. Black people think and believe they can do what they want, and no white person or anybody else can question it. They fail to understand that freedom doesn't mean you can be an ass. And my neighbor said the other day, she ain't never gonna get that house done. She don't got the money. I looked at him, I said, you know what's ironic is that people just assume I'm rich. I save up for a project and then I just do it myself. I said, she doesn't have any overhead at all. What is she doing with the money she makes from her damn job? Who knows? It's none of my business. But they want to look down on me when they were the ones that declared war on me. And they don't realize I'm not from here. I don't play by their silly, godless rules. You fuck with me, I'm going to stand up for the rights I believe I have. And your son keeps coming over, I'm going to meet with a city official and say, y'all need to do something. There's been 5 years of living in a trailer. The property looks like shit. And y'all need to do something. I mean, is that allowed for her to live indefinitely in a travel trailer to tarps on it? It looks like a mess. 3 months after the judge talked to her, the dogs were still jumping the fence, barking, running loose. I said, man, she doesn't realize how nice I've been. So when I pulled my truck out of the driveway, I don't have a newer truck where the lights come on, and I don't like that. I like to be able to put on the lights myself. I flashed the high beam on, turned on the truck, pulled this headlight switch, and they bathed the trailer in light. Their dogs had woke me up, barking, barking, and I made sure and let the truck warm up. I never do. I run it for all of 20 seconds, put it in drive, and go to work. I did that a couple times, and finally, I don't know if that did it. I don't know if she had the mental competence to put two and two together, but the problem went away. I think it's interesting when you hear a black woman talking about their son getting shot, apprehended by the police, and they want to cry racism and cry crocodile tears, an orange haired black lady. My son graduated, he played basketball, and everybody loved him. Everybody who? Birds of a feather? There's a giant disconnect between people that hold my values and people like this. Big disconnect. And I accept differences, but not these kind. Neighborly is neighborly. My neighbor over here would not do that. My neighbor, white family living next door, I don't even know their home half the time. And other people on this street aren't disturbing the peace. One woman, disheveled house. And people say, well, they're nice. No, nice people don't do this shit. And then I see her bending the ear of an older white woman. I don't know who she is, lives in the neighborhood, and they're standing there talking about me. And she's looking into my yard. I'm thinking, hey, honey, if you want to come over and talk to me and hear the true side of the story, let me know. But I don't stare. I go on about my business, and I'm like, let these people think whatever they want. This is the South. The comments and the jokes that have been made about the South all my life, living in the Pacific Northwest, Pacific Southwest, living overseas, living in northern Minnesota, Colorado, Washington, and all over the place, and even Ohio, are true. The South is not that intelligent overall. And there's a lot of shitty stuff down here, especially in the dirty, deep South. They call this the dirty South. And it makes me realize that I, as an American, have moved to a part of the country that almost seems like a foreign planet. The way people view things. That 38 years of home ownership, even though you dropped your insurance and the house is burned and you haven't kept it up, and I come over and buy a wreck of a house and I've been putting my all into it, and that gives you more rights than me. That's fucked up African American woman thinking for you. I wouldn't even date a woman like that. You see a lot of that down here. Black women that cost so much to be involved with. Black women that I've worked with. You go into their home and there's rats, mice, and roaches and a filthy mess everywhere. 4 children that act up, and you're going, oh, hell no. Not dating this. No. A woman like that has nothing to give positively in a relationship. She's a drain. She's Mono Lake in Lee Vining, California, where all the rivers flow into it, but nothing flows out. It's stagnant. In fact, it's almost toxic. There's too much salt in it. That the only thing that can live in the lake is brine shrimp. And the thing that I take away from living in Augusta, Georgia, is the way the Black community thinks is not in accordance with normalcy, reason, intellect. They's got their own rules. And it's like trying to carry that misbehaving toddler through the door. They're going to go, you tell them logic and facts, and they come back with, if you'd use some communication and understanding. If you pulled your head out of your butt and realized you're all are bothering me, not the reverse. You want to question me? I don't have the right to call the police on your son. You make it sound like I'm just calling for no reason. Did you leave out the part that he was being an asshole? And then when he assumes that I'm doing it, he keeps doing it. Most people go, oh, I'm pissing him off. Maybe I better stop. They don't work that way in the Black community. They do it more and more because they want an altercation. And then they'll say it's because he was racist. This culture down here is shit. I don't like it. It's not my cup of tea. They're awful. There's some good Black people down here, but there's a lot of them that don't think right, don't vote right, don't act right. You see it as evidenced by their property, lack of pride. And the news did a story, this poor woman. That's not news. The news should have said she dropped her insurance, daughter put some on the stove, and I see irresponsibility, and then I move in. I have nothing to do with any of this, and I feel some sense of sadness for you, but then your son decides to declare war on me, and I got to work. He apparently doesn't have a job. He just fucks around and comes down here to shit on the neighborhood, even though he doesn't live here. He hasn't fixed that house. He hasn't repaired it. He hasn't done a damn thing. 5 years have gone by. And she and I are the same. This house wasn't burned, but there was so much damage and crapped up stuff, and I'm still not done. Viewers, we all know the media is lying and misrepresenting whites. The media is owned by rich white elites telling us that we're systemically racist. I'm here to tell you, I've seen more racism, hate, and wrong behavior by the Black community towards us than the reverse. Most people I know are live and let live. We were walking downtown last night, and Black people are going up and down the street in their shitty vehicles with that stuff. You could hear it blocks away. Motherfucking A, motherfucking N. Boom, boom. Really? Good sales point for your race, folks. Baltimore intimidating the 20% of Black whites that live there. And Baltimore is a shithole city. South Augusta, shithole city. Black leadership in this area, shitty. Because the folks vote for the color of their own skin, not the content of their character. And for me to stand in the courtroom and be questioned and second guessed by Blacks when their behavior, when their own whatever is in shambles, and now they're going to analyze me because they forced me to take action. And the woman still didn't obey for 3 months. And Blacks wonder why the police don't like to deal with them. Blacks don't bother to look at the facts that there's been whites shot and gunned down by the police. But the reason it doesn't make the news is because white people are not out videotaping it, because in most of white America, I've heard guys say he probably fucked up. That's why he got shot by the cops. But blacks don't think that way. Cops are systemically racist. Oh, Rodney King was going 110 miles an hour the wrong way on the LA freeway. Just think if I'd have been driving down there at that time and he hit me. Would the black community weep or give a shit? They wouldn't fucking care. And they go on and on about the cops, all adrenaline up, and they did. They lost their self-control and beat him up. Honestly, he should have been taken out of this world. And my mother had gone to South Central, and the blacks burned and destroyed that neighborhood. And what was ironic about that is that was their own neighborhood. The fire department comes to put out fires, and the blacks are shooting at fire trucks. Fire trucks. And did you see the blacks beating on Korean shop owners? The only ones brave enough to sell product in the black hood, spray painting the guy in the face. I saw that and I want to take that black guy and rip his fucking head off and puke down his neck. How about Reginald Denny, the trucker that tried to help and a black guy assaulted the shit out of him? See, I grew up out in California and all this shit that the media is saying and all this way the blacks look at it is fucked. And you can't get through to them. Because they play race go round. You're not black. You don't understand. Oh, you're implying because I'm not your color. I'm not as smart as you. Wrong again, Ronald. Wrong again. I can look in and see what I see, and that stuff doesn't lie. I wish I had supernatural power. I'd put an end to some of this crap. I know I would. That woman has nowhere to go. That's why she's living the way she's living. She ain't going to move out of there. She ain't going to sell it because she ain't going to get enough for it to do anything. But she's owned it 38 years, and I come in here thinking, wow, I got myself a home. And my experience is being greatly affected by some punky neighbors that don't know how to act. And I'm supposed to look the other way and not say anything. Welcome to Black America. Welcome to fucked up thinking. Welcome to Democrat thinking. Welcome to I can be a shithead and I can do whatever I want, and you got to shut your own mouth and stay in your lane. That's the way they think. Not all black people are like this. And I told my friend, the next move I make when that day comes, we're not moving to a predominantly black anywhere. Not going to do it. Talk to my friends in Zambia and Kenya. They know 3 languages. They're beautiful. They dress nice. They don't listen to that ghetto music. They own houses, beautiful homes. They work. I could live around those people. But African American community in the US, no. There's some good blacks, and I don't even need to say that. But I do need to say that blacks always talk about us. We're not the ones causing the lion's share of crime. We're not the ones killing blacks. Blacks are killing blacks in the shiploads. Under a Democrat black lesbian mayor in Chicago, black violence went through the roof. And she's yelling at Abbott in Texas for stopping illegals. And guess what's happening in Chicago right now because of Democrat leadership? Blacks in the bad neighborhoods are complaining about the illegals coming in and attacking them. Just like Candace Owens says, when the black community wakes up and gets off the plantation, the Democratic Party is going to shake in their boots. I don't want blacks in slavery. I never approved of that. But black people have been getting revenge on us for a long time. That shit across the street is a case in point. They don't have fear of me. They don't have fear of whites at all. We have to shut up. Well, they might shoot you. Yeah. Isn't that sad that that's the way they deal with stuff? Not the right way, always the wrong way. Fear and intimidation. And that's a good sign that somebody's under the power of the devil. Because a true child of God doesn't operate on fear and intimidation. A true child of God tries to love his neighbor as himself. That's not emanating out of that over there. Didn't care that the dog was dragging shit into my yard, making a mess, barking, keeping me, did not care. But let me do something to affect those people over there. Well, war's on in their mind. Afrocentrism is a big problem in the African American community. They're a myopic race, generally speaking. They only like their issues, their music, and it's a carousel that goes around and around. I'm not a racist for saying that. That's a factual observation. I thought I'd share this with you. When you have a bad neighbor like that, it can bring you to your knees. And we live in a country that's run by fools. The people like that breed like rabbits, proliferate like rabbits, and do whatever they want. And they're never stopped by the law. Isn't that fun? Black Lives Matters. Yeah, right. Her own spawn, her own offspring, they're not rebuilding that place. They might come over once every 6 months and you'll see a flurry of activity. And you look over there in the yard and it's like, okay, they mowed that patch over there, but yeah, it doesn't look improved. But see, no one wants to be the one that pushes it to the next level because then you're the bad guy because this poor black woman whose house burned, and if the authorities try to force her out of there, you know what's going to happen with that. The foolish woman plucketh down her own house with her own hands. I don't care what she's been through. I just see what she's doing to me and her family's doing to me. And that's all I need. Not good people, not good neighbors, not wise choices, as we say to children. You need to make wise choices. You need to make good choices. You didn't, and you still not. You need to get on your son and say, don't be starting trouble with the white boy across the street. Leave him alone. Because if you leave him alone, there's no cop cars. Go play that shit somewhere else. That's what a mother does. She don't. The term that we're thinking of is GHETTO. That's what you got. So if you want to do a side-by-side comparison about a guy who has, I don't have a good old boys club behind me. I don't have family here. I finally have a roommate where we think alike on many ways, and that's been a godsend. You contrast my lifestyle and the way I'm taking care of my property with that, and I think that most people in America would say, I'm going to do the Pacific approach. Most people that I reach on an intellectual level, they're not going to go for that. But I need to use understanding and communication. And then you burp up something you never should have told me. He just got out of prison. Oh, that's why he's acting like an asshole. He come out of the criminal justice system and he hasn't reformed a bit. Now he's going to keep doing it, break traffic laws, drive like an idiot. I was driving to church one day up one of the roads and he hadn't been here for a while. And I saw him hauling ass playing dodgeball around the cars going 80 in a 45 zone. I thought, yeah, he called the police on my son. Lady, let me tell you something. If my son lived here and that son of a bitch came down the street he was going at, and my son happened to go and grab a ball and he hit him, wouldn't I be justified in burning your house down and attacking your neighborhood because your black people don't give a shit about our lives? Would I be justified? But that's what you do. If one of yours dies at the hands of a white, you're going to burn a whole city down. So, as far as understanding, it's a one-way street with your folks. And this boyfriend is a sad, sad man. He doesn't have good taste in women. He certainly doesn't make wise choices in getting a helpmate that is suitable for him. If this is a girlfriend situation, and if you're a relative, I don't see you helping her get that house ready to go. And you want to play man with me. Wrong place, buddy. Wrong person. But I can't say anything in a courtroom because I'm not going to do Jerry Springer. I raised my hand. Judge doesn't want to call on me. And I want to say, Judge, that there is offensive to me. It don't matter how long I've owned my home. And this guy here has no say in any of this. A bad behaving black mother got to have her and two other people come in there. And I'm by myself laying out the facts. She had none. She went off pure emotion. I own my home longer than him. He called the police on my son because he's being an ass. Yet my sleep doesn't matter. Come on, lady. Should I, in my home, should I have to put in earplugs in my home while he sits over there for hours playing butt thumping music all day, all night? I don't believe that. I don't believe that shit at all. And because of your behavior, you forced me to go on social media. You can't sue me because I have a right to talk. No names, address have been mentioned. I have a right to talk about this because I'm a white guy and I have the same rights you have for the freedom of speech. For you to say false things about me, I have the right to speak the truth about you. And I don't like you and I don't like your people over there. You're disgusting individuals. And you guys, this is the welcome I got. And the person who used to live in this house knew you and stopped talking to you. I know because her friend is somebody I work with. And she couldn't believe what I've done to the house because that friend took pictures and she's like, oh my gosh. Dumb people. Dumb people. And we give them the right to fucking vote? No wonder a country's in the shitter. So if you want to compare whites to blacks, let's do a study of Pacific and let's do a study of Exhibit B over there. I don't even have sons or daughters to help. I have a son, but he lives far away. They're not doing anything for you. And a black man want to tell me I have to have understanding. Oh, son got out of prison. Why does that seem to be the norm with single black mamas? Because they don't have the tools to teach their kids about respect. They don't have the tools to realize your dogs are your dogs, but they shouldn't be mine and they shouldn't be in my yard. And when I came out my back door one morning early and that dog's barking at me 2 feet from my door, I would have had every right to take my shovel and beat the fucker over the head and drop it dead because it's in my backyard, well into my backyard. But did I do that? I should have. You wouldn't have known because you're not paying attention. Throw that thing in the back of the truck, go down to the swamp, and out of sight, out of mind. All them dogs are in my yard. I'm backing up my truck one day and they're barking at me deep into my driveway. And I get out of the truck, get out of here, and run at them. Thank you, Augusta, for showing me the truth when the media is a liar. Thank you for showing me that the black community as a whole in America is really broken and not an example or a shining beacon on a hill. Thank you for giving me the boldness to face my fears and to accurately talk about the race called African American. I've made my assessment. I've seen the evidence. I'm done with you. Done. Done. I worked with your children that you didn't care about. When little boys say, "Can you be my daddy?" And I feel like crying. No, I can't be your daddy. I need understanding and communication. And what does that mean, sir? That this boy got out of prison has the right to shape the neighborhood and I need to have understanding? If I, as a white boy, am disturbing you out of your sleep and wrecking your quality of life in your home, on your property, you going to take that? I don't think so. If you think being neighborly is holding the entire neighborhood hostage because you're selfish and you want to play your shitty stuff, even though the rest of us don't want to hear it, I'm not going to be able to have understanding about that because my brain works properly. There's right and there's wrong. And this is a problem in the African American community. They don't get that basic construct. White people don't want to move in your neighborhood. Depreciating real estate values, noise, drug dealing, bad behavior. Who wants to be there? I don't. I took a crapshoot moving here. But God enrolled me in school here. I don't have to be black to talk about black issues. I've lived down here and I've observed it for myself. Favoritism towards blacks, cops that are soft on them, don't do anything about it. Workplace where blacks get away with murder, bad behavior. Yeah. This is something the media never talks about. I'm still waiting for Michelle Obama to pull up in the CNN news trucks and tell me that white people don't move to black neighborhoods. I'm still waiting for that interview. She won't do it because the black community can go wah, 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 and whatever they say is gospel. But if I speak the truth, I'm a racist. I don't use the N word, but they do. I don't support the N word, but they do. When I drove the bus, I had to tell black high school students, I don't want to hear that on my bus. Well, it's okay if we say, I said, but if a white guy says you're ready to throw it down because it's racism. It's racism unless it comes out of your mouth. How does that work? And one of the things I've learned being down here is a lot of the black mindset does not think according to common sense, rational, or what I call apologetic thinking, where you can defend your viewpoint on a logical, concrete thinking basis. It's abstract and it's emotionally and color based, not truth based, as evidenced by the neighbor, as evidenced by her foolish argument in the courtroom. He called on my son. He's waking me up. He's bothering me and harassing me in my home. And whoever passed a law saying that you can sit in your yard or off the street and blast that shit at all, let alone all day until 11 p.m., the laws are catering to the GHETTO element in our society. Because if they were to say you can't do that, the black community say, oh, that's racist. Any moron that can come into a residential neighborhood with all ages, all diversity, people live in their homes and think that they can hold everybody hostage to listen to their shitty trash can music is fucked up here. They know what they're doing. Go tell them to turn it down. Go try to talk to them. And they will act just like the music they're listening to. Shitty. But guess what? My reasoning and my view is not getting through to these folks. They're incapable of grasping this. One, because they don't want to. Two, because they don't care about other people's. They like people to feel sorry for them. The media came out, did the story on that house. Oh, that poor woman. The foolish woman plucketh down her own hands, her house with her own hands. You didn't have insurance, drop the insurance, and you got a daughter. Now people make mistakes, but you light something on the stove and you walk away and go to sleepy. If my son was here and did that, and I was going to stay and rebuild, I'd be like, "You're out. I love you, but you're out. You're a liability." She went and got a new car and moved. Brought her two dogs over here. She didn't apologize for that because I see the attitude on her. When the animal control came and had to yell and get her out of the trailer, she was irritated. But she comes back with a new hairdo and new nails. That's big in the Black community. Their priorities. They're not about respecting their neighbor. It's about getting their hair done. I don't like this community. I don't like the way they think. I'm not racist, but I don't really enjoy that kind of dynamic. And their cultural dynamic out here is shitty. I don't care if they're offended. And the only thing they know how to do is, he's a racist. They cannot argue on an intellectual basis. They're incapable of doing it. It's emotionally driven foolishness. We're not going to call it emotionally driven logic because it's not logic. It's emotionally driven foolishness. Trying to reach the Black community with truth is like trying to reach Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. You cannot. It's a cult. The Black community in America is a cult. Not all Black people think like this. There's Black people that have come out. They see the light. My neighbor next to me now, I don't know where he stands politically, but he keeps his property clean and tidy. And thank you for the comment. I don't hate Black people, but it has affected me so much that I will never marry one. It has affected me so much that God allowed me to move again. I'm getting away from this dynamic because there's a lot of shit down here. It's a very sad story. I can drive you in my truck and take you neighborhood after neighborhood where they live and they let their houses go to hell. Cars on jack stands that'll never get fixed, broken toys, broken bikes, shit all over the yard. The stuff isn't raked. And they want to talk about whites. Most white people I know take care of their shit. I'm one man who grew up in a fucked up, abusive home. Very abusive. And for those of you that follow me, my father, the one that adopted me, recently died. I had absolutely no feeling about that. And thank you. But God watches over me. And I don't say that piously or loosely. I am obligated to carry my life in a way where God can defend me. And what I mean by that is I'm not out there being a jerk. But I just don't like living in a country where I always have to shut my mouth. I can't just open the window. Hey, turn that shit down. You can't do that. I could, but you're dealing with an irrational human being. If they're listening to that kind of music, they don't care about nobody, no how. And people say, well, that's your opinion. This is not my opinion. You listen to music with all that profanity and the N-word, you don't care about nobody, no how. You don't have musical taste. You're not a connoisseur of fine music. I listen to a wide variety of music, but I will put an exclamation point on that stuff. It's garbage. And thank you, in my world, I take people on an individual basis, not a race, not a skin color. I take them on an individual basis. We live in a world today where things are upside down in this country. Bad people have more rights. Children have more rights against adults. Animals, dogs, and cats have more rights and protection than a baby in the womb. 61 million people have been killed by a Democrat Party saying it's just a tissue blob. And we see this pressing of evil on those of us that are not trying to bother people, just trying to get a job, pay your bills, and make a difference in this world. The pushback of the dark world has begun against us. America has done an about face. And any politician that can put into law a law that allows people to act like bloody fools and disturb the neighborhood. It's one thing if somebody's got the old school car radio on, they got the doors open, they're vacuuming their car on a Saturday afternoon. Nobody cares about that. But you got a sound system that sounds like it's concert arena and you can hear it for blocks. That ain't fair. That ain't reasonable. But the laws are reflecting the fear that the lawmakers have of being branded racist and coddling a black community instead of saying, you know what? You call us racist all day long, but you're disturbing everybody. I don't support the BLM movement. There's some legal troubles coming for them. The woman who headed it up got a lot of money given to her cause, and she promptly bought $1 million mansions out in California. Candace Owens showed up on the property at her intercom and had a talk. She refused to meet with her and got on her TikTok and said, oh my gosh, Candace Owens is here. Okay, well, where'd all this $80 million go, babe? Black people don't care about their own people. Look at their children. They have a lot of children, and the mothers yell and scream at them all day, and the boys don't do well under black female leadership. They don't. And you know why? Because mom yells and screams and what do black boys learn to deal with their problems? Gun or fight, gun or fight, gun or fight. Not agree to disagree and move on. Not all blacks are like this. Not all blacks are like this. Not all blacks are like this. But a good lion's share of the 13% of the U.S. population, 75% of the women in the black community are single, raising kids, and daddy's nowhere to be found. But I need to have some understanding and communication about a prisoner who, when he gets out, isn't humble, trying to get a job and rebuild his life, but now he's going to take me on, who he doesn't know. How does he know I don't come out of the house with an Uzi and say, you know what, I'm tired of your shit? How does he know? The African-American community is not very smart because they push the button on us and everybody, not realizing that somebody could snap and be done with them. I don't do that to people. I don't do that to people. And I decided to go on YouTube with this because I'm sure there are other people who have this same kind of experience. People would say, well, location, maybe you shouldn't have bought there. Probably not. But when I turned the key after closing on the house, I felt the peace of God that I had made a decision. Had I known in advance all the stuff that was going to happen, I never would have done it. But that's why God doesn't tell us, because sometimes God has us go into something and he doesn't tell us because he knows exactly what we do. There's awesome folks all around. You just have to find them. There's not high concentrations of them, but they exist. Wherever you live, you can find them. But it takes some searching. I thank all of you for listening. I just keep it real. I just tell it like it is. You cannot reason with the kind of thinking I've come up against with the neighbors. It's like a cult. That's because New York City's under Democrat leadership that wants to defund the police and allow all the illegals to come flooding in. They want to ban gas stoves or Governor Hochul. All I do is tell you when it was under the leadership of Giuliani, New York City started cleaning up. But let's be fair, the Republicans are a bunch of wussies. They don't have a spine. They're not affecting change. But I would never vote Democrat. And I look at the Black community group hugging the Democrats, and it is not helping their race at all. It's encouraging lawlessness. It's encouraging a sharp rise in Black on Black violence. And when Blacks get to the point where everything goes to hell, they're going to be begging us to come in and to save them, not other Blacks. Mark my words. Because Nigerians and people from Africa and the Philippines and Asia and all over the world still want to live in this country. If we're so bad, why aren't the Blacks collectively leaving and going to Ghana? Their own leader said, I welcome all African Americans. Nobody took them up on it because you can sit here and smart off, earn your money, and cause trouble and get away with it. When people say there's no justice, the Black community, they're right. There's no justice for me against the shitty behavior of the Blacks. And as far as reparations, the amount of criminal damage that they've done to this country and riots and lawlessness and theft, the amount of money they've done that has cost police departments and resources, officers' lives, what they've done to neighborhoods by systematically eroding and destroying them, we don't owe them a dime. We need to send them a bill. Because whatever we might have owed in reparations, which I don't owe them a thing because I wasn't a slave owner and I was adopted, so I don't know my family lineage. They need to start paying us for the damages they've done. Good luck getting that. You're living in a different world and you know that. The only thing I can say to you is don't despair. Put your hope in God. Look, I'm a human. I get down sometimes, especially when I see shit like I talked about today. I don't know why God allows us to go through stuff like that. I don't know why God doesn't come down to that neighbor and say, enough. He could. This is what we have to get in our mind. God could stop this. He could stop it. That boy being an ass, he'd give him a heart attack. That'll be the end of it. And then her. God could stop it. What we need to do is pray to him and say, the fact you're not stopping it, what is it you're trying to tell me, God? It seems like evil's getting away with it right now, doesn't it? There's a reason for that. But God's not sitting on his throne wringing his hands saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? He knows what he's doing. He doesn't condone, but he allows the decisions of men. Why? I don't know, but he has his reasons. I got to go. But I wanted to do this because I hear a lot of stuff talked about us bad whites, and I'm not one of them. And I come into this neighborhood and I'm persecuted and harassed, and my rights and boundaries are trampled by a Black mother. They can't get her collective shit together. It's very irritating. She's an unwise and a foolish woman. And it doesn't matter what others say about her. It doesn't matter what some people think. She is in the wrong, as evidenced by the current state of her place, as evidenced by her kids that aren't doing anything. She got money to get a loan for her car. She should have been paying mom back for all the damage in that house, but Blacks want to say, I've got a wonderful daughter that burned me out of house and home. Okay, well, let me know how that works out for you, babe. But thank you for listening. This is Pacific signing off.